Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Lou Lescas, and my presentation tonight is entitled Historical Photos of Northeast Philadelphia. Since the end of 2021, I have been a board member of this august body, the Northeast Philadelphia History Network. Last December, I presented to you a presentation of a large sample of row houses from Northeast Philadelphia from the 1870s to the 1980s. I was inspired to do this work from attending a symposium I attended in October of 2022 at the University of Pennsylvania Weitzman School of Architecture entitled Philadelphia, the Row House City. Tonight's presentation, however, has no such privilege or tutelage. I was just God's will and dumb luck how I came upon a collection of thousands of photos taken by the City of Philadelphia photographers from between 1926 and 1954, printed off with high quality printers 30 to 40 years ago, then eventually left for trash on the 8th floor of the Municipal Services Building. Until late 2017, when I was working for doing historical research at the Philadelphia Water Department Archives, an old friend and someone known by this audience, Adam Levine, asked me if I could go to pick up some of these photos with him. I gladly obliged, and in freezing cold weather and high winds, we walked to the Municipal Services Building, picked up a few of the boxes, then carried them back to the Water Archives, where I caught my first glimpse of them. Okay, where I caught my first glimpse of them. I could see immediately that they were just, even though they were just prints, not negatives, they had tremendous potential for scanning as they were photographed in high resolution. It took 6 years to get them scanned, which was then done at the Athenaeum of Philadelphia on Washington Square, thanks to the efforts of former curator Bruce Laverty, imaging specialist Jim Carroll, special projects assistant Meijing Hunt Babcock, tech specialist Walter Rice, facilitator Adam, and myself, who was assigned to clean up and correct metadata and properly formulate each photo. Since I have a great deal of experience in doing this, I've corrected 8,154 photos in the Philly History website since 2007. And since these were just printed versions of archival photos, just like in the Philly website, phillyhistory.org, it was comparatively easy for me to adapt what was needed. The photos you're about to see are some of the approximately 15% photographed from Northeast Philadelphia. The other 85% were from other parts of the city and not within the scope of this program, except for the cover photo, which is from West Philadelphia, erroneously submitted instead of a Mayfair home like I did last year. So I figured it would be good luck to do the same thing this time of year on purpose. This image is from Winfield near 52nd Street and Parkside Avenue. And it was a bizarre photo of the rear of homes being too close to a quarry and their subsequent inadequate rear retaining wall, which failed twice in 19 years. Whoop, sorry. Why were these photos taken anyway? They're an amazing snapshot of the past, but also they are to show before and after progress of city contractors or employees and to tout their work to annual reports, so city officials could most likely use them in their bids for re-election or to show insurance-related issues and proof of violations to contractors who may not have followed the very many city codes that were and still are in place. What is most interesting to me, though, is not the intent of the photo. It was often secondary objects, such as signage, people, and comical things that are in some of these images, which hopefully you will see as I begin. The first set of photos is of the Roosevelt Boulevard, named for Theodore, not Franklin D., mostly north of Grant Avenue, named for Samuel Grant, not Ulysses S. Grant. But when these photographs were taken, the road was called Ben Salem Avenue. The first picture you look at here is the old lane, obviously needing construction. It's the southbound lane of the Roosevelt Boulevard, slightly above Comley Road. This lane was often called the westbound lane, even though it runs southward. The northbound lane is indicated as eastbound. A lot of old addresses in the Northeastern Boulevard were, for example, 6933 East Roosevelt Boulevard. And then what it really meant was north, but this is the way the city did it years ago. And this was the original Bensalem Avenue Road. The new one was the northbound, as I said. If you can see in the photo here, this is the new lane. This is just recently built. And Bensalem Avenue had probably been paved in around 1920 or so, and it wasn't a very good job. You can see the truck here where my pointer is, where the tires in the mud, basically. Anyway, so the next picture is a picture of the new lane. Now this is looking south on the northbound lane, and this is near Burling Avenue. This is up further, close to the city limits. Burling Avenue is part of the Benjamin Rush State Park, and it's no longer a city street. My next photo is looking northbound on the northbound drive south of Comley Road. And this is taken in 1930. This is after paving of the lanes on both sides. Where my pointer is going from side to side is the approximate area of the Byberry Creek. Comley Road is just above that. And you'll see a school up here. That's the Byberry Public School. And up here would be where Nabisco would be, for example. This next road is Boulevard. This is the southbound lane looking north at Byberry Road. Byberry Road is the road here on the left-hand side. There was no road across the street from it. There was another section of Byberry Road, which I'll mention soon, which is up a little bit further. This is a park guard stand for anybody that's not familiar with them. It was where the Fairmount Park police used to rest or just get warm. And there are two specific parts of this picture that are interesting. The side on the left, this is sale, and the sign on the right, this is for sale. This is what became Nabisco in 1954, 24 years later. And this on this side is what became the Normandy Square Mart, which would have been around 1958 or 59. And this is a current photo, which most of these pictures are Google Maps. I couldn't stand in the middle of the street and try to take a picture like this and get it for clarity. So it's probably easier to do it that way. Next picture I have here of the boulevard is a little bit further south. This is Haldeman and the Boulevard. If you look at these signs here, you can see they sell hot dogs for 5 cents. And there is a trailer park back here. You can't quite see the signs. One of the more common occurrences of this era were trailer parks along Route 1 because it was the main road from Maine to Florida. And oftentimes people would stop for the night. They didn't, had a tent or they had a trailer or whatever like that. And it was a good place to stop. And again, this is Haldeman Avenue on the right, and this is the boulevard on the left. And this is a current photo, same thing. Looks a little different now. Next photo is going to be of the Roosevelt Boulevard southbound at Red Line. We're just beyond Red Line Road. And not a lot of traffic on this road. This is after paving in February of 1930. And that little sign is maybe of some notice there. And there's a point to it all. And as you can see, they did parachute jumps at the former William Penn Airport, which was in business from the late 1920s right after 1950. And I don't know if anybody did it that day, but it looked like a good day to jump. Moving down the boulevard further, this is at Ron Street looking north on the northbound lane. This place up here is used to be called the Baptist Home. Now it's called Deer Meadows. And as you can see, the more mature trees, because this part of the boulevard was just a little bit older than the other part north of Grant Avenue prior. Okay. Who patrolled the Roosevelt Boulevard? And the answer is the Motor Vehicle Patrol. Now, I don't know about you, but they're interesting looking men. And they look like they would probably take no nonsense from anyone, even without their bandoliers. And if you see the bandoliers, they're just bullets everywhere. This guy looks like Frank Rizzo's relative. I don't know if you can see it, how well you can see it on the big screen, but there's definitely a resemblance there. And of course, that's the Motor Vehicle Patrol patch on this guy right there. The next part of this presentation is going to be talking about the very bucolic far northeast in the 1930s. Anyone used to this body of people knows that this is the 1843 Ellett map, which is the first really well-done map of the entire city of Philadelphia. The far northeast is basically everything from about here up. That line would be about Lott Avenue, I suppose. And the city limits is up here. And I wish I'd get rid of that zoom thing, sorry. Anyway, and this is the area where most of these next pictures are going to be taken from. This is a, oh boy, hold on a second. There we go, that's much better. Okay. This is sort of a gas station, little store. This was James Todd's gas station. And the picture was taken showing the mounded up water ditches, which is the rural precursor to storm sewers. And you can't quite see it that great in this picture, but all they did was just pile dirt up and then the water would flow downward from the grade that they had graded. And if you look at this next picture, you see a little bit more detail. There's a brick company there. There's an old school building there. And again, there's James Todd's gas station here. And this location is the northeast corner of Byberry Road and Knights Road, was called back then. But today you may know it as Woodhaven Road. Whoops, sorry. Woodhaven Road and Knights Road. So the way the roads were configured years ago, Knights Road and Woodhaven Road, or Knights Road and Byberry Road, it was not a 90-degree intersection. It was staggered. And back here, whoop. This is the other Knights Road, the first Knights Road, and the other one would have been way over here on the other side. The next highway is a beautifully graded dirt road near a creek in 1935. The nice house there, bunch of fields there, fairly wide road for a comparatively narrow, unused road, mostly a farm area. The next picture will show a little bit more close-ups. This is showing the bridge over a creek. And this is a farmhouse on this side. And quite bucolic, quite pretty. And this is a 1958 photo of the same location, southeast of the west side. And of course, it says Staunton Road there. That should tip you a little bit. This road behind here is the original Woodhaven Road that was extended westward from Byberry Road. And this was a 4-lane highway with an island in the middle of it. But nobody was living up here yet in the neighborhoods, the Rambler Park's just north of that. Over here, this shows the farmhouse. This would be looking south. And the farmhouse of Watson Martindale was the pretty home here on the right that was about to get torn down for airport purposes. And there was a farmhouse back here that was long gone where the Thornton Road sign was. And this is what it looks like today, very sadly. This is effectively underneath the Woodhaven Road Bridge. The photo that was taken in 1935 here was probably on the north side access road, which would have run right about here. Of course, the creek bridge is up here. This is a country road and a farm, I titled this one, because it's quite a pretty picture. The picture on the left side looks to the west. The picture on this side looks to the east. So this is the back of the properties here. There's 3 buildings. It looks like a house and 2 farm buildings. And this is a road that no longer exists anymore, sadly. It's called, it's called Mechanicsville Road. And Mechanicsville Road at one time went from Byberry Road, went from Knights Road all the way up to Richelieu Road in the middle of Benjamin Rush State Park. But it was worked on by the WPA, and most of these roads in the far northeast were not paved. The only roads that were paved were comparatively major roads, like, for example, Academy Road or maybe Byberry Road. But the rest of these roads were just dirt. And let's see, sorry, losing my thought here. Okay, the next slide here will show a close-up of these men at work, and the same picture again with a little bit closer clarity with the bridge. What? Get rid of it. Thank you. Sorry about that. Anyway, and this is again the houses up there. And then you'll see here that this is a 1927 map versus a 1962 map. This is the way the original picture looked. This is where the farm would be. This is the farm of James Scott, which was probably in Scott's name until Hyman Corman came along and built this all for Parkwood Manor. And this is what it looks like today. Mechanicsville Road was kind of blended into Medford Road. It at one time went straight up, and then now it bends with the more traditional Parkwood Manor type curved streets. And this is right at the what they call Gilbert's Run. And there's a house here that's on the right-hand side. It's a cinder block house, and it's really the last vestige of what was back in this old neighborhood. Now this road, was stricken and vacant from a city plan in the 1970s, but it's still in place. Out of all the photographs you're going to see, this is the only one that's still here today, and you can actually see where this is, and it doesn't look that much different than it was. Anyone who knows anything about Philadelphia Department of Records pictures, they love to show before and after photos. Unfortunately, there was no after photo for this particular photo, but you can see the bridge rather clearly, and it's just a muddy mess. This is taken in wintertime in 1933, and you know, like this is life in the Northeast back then. And the close-up of the same photo would indicate obviously the ruts on the left-hand side, and you can see a little bit more close-up part of the bridge there. And here, the next page is a Bromley map that shows a road that no longer exists. This is the old Byberry Road, and this actually in this map is called Byberry Meeting Road. It's called a lot of different things, but this road ran from the Byberry Friends meeting down this way, over this way, and ended right at the boulevard, just above the other Byberry Road. And again, from my earlier mention, this is where today it's Devon Self-Storage, but back then it was the Normandy Square and other things like that. And this is where the creek is right here. And this is the road that's here today. And because it was bought by the Woodhaven Center a long time ago, the road was preserved. And this is the way it looks. So it's kind of interesting to see the original bridge from the late 1920s, I suppose. And there it was there. And there it is today. And that's, like I said, it's the only one I found that's like this, sadly. This is another country road. This is the way a great deal of these roads came to be. They were just dirt trails, and if they weren't used very often, they kind of fell apart. This is before any work that was done, and by the time they got done working on it, it did look a little bit better. But it was, just a bit of a mess, I guess you'd say. So this is switching neighborhoods now. This is a much later photo. This is a 1953 photo of a heavily traveled intersection today that looked quite peaceful. The close-ups may have given away the location. I'm not sure if you could see anything there or not. They may, but even with nearby railroad bridge built in 1920s, it looks far different today. This is the Henry Palmer lumber yard that was on the left-hand side. And here is a photo of the left side. There's an old hotel, which is still standing today in some capacity. And this is what the city thought was a good idea back then, where they had put a cement bollard basically and put a telephone pole right inside it, and it's right in the middle of the road. And I don't know if you can see the signs, but this is Philmont Avenue and Bustleton Avenue. And this is what it looks like today. There's the hotel, the Washington House, or now it's called something Go-Go. I don't even know what it's called now. But they built the bridge very high, and they have a big runner here, and you really can't see much of it. Philmont Avenue comes in here. They conjoined it with River Hill Avenue, and it just looks so incredibly different than it did back then. And this is a neighborhood very close to Byberry Friends meeting. This is about maybe a half a mile west of the bridge that I showed before. That was the original. This is Southampton Road, west of Townsend Road. This was part of the Byberry Poor Farm on this side. And this is just a poor guy walking down the street. I don't know if he was involved with the Byberry Poor Farm, or he might have been a resident of one of the farmhouses. I have no idea. If anybody recognizes him, let them know. This is from 1934, so good luck there. The Poor Farm is over here. This is where the street is right now, and there's that little arrow, which I wish I had drawn bigger. And this is the Byberry Friends meeting here. Okay, this is one of these things where if it wasn't for these photos, these amazing photos, you would never know about this picture. Now, I know about this road from years ago, and I actually knew somebody that lived in this house for a while until it was torn down. So this is a house of a woman named Pauline Markloff, who in 1929 sold her house in Lawndale and moved up here, and she bought a property for the grand total of $3,000, which was not a lot of money in 1929. And it was a fairly large house, 38 by 20 and 17 by 18 back. You know, it had you know, hot air heat. It wasn't a bad house at all, but it was a, you know, nice looking Tudor. And later on, they built a second house there. And unfortunately, it was torn down around 1970. And this might tell you a little bit where it is. This is the Thomason Road water towers. And I included these two pictures because of the graffiti. I just think that's really, really funny that a guy got up 50 feet there and was able to write his name on there. So tell me how Count Cost did it. Somebody said maybe he tied a rope to the top here, which was a pole that went through the tank and maybe rappelled down, but I don't know. But this is 63 years ago now. This one's from 1966, and kids are still writing graffiti on things. No surprise there. And this location specifically is how different it changed from 1934, when this was the way the road looked, to today. And this is Audubon Avenue here and Tomlinson Road here. And this is about a half a mile west of Bustleton Avenue. This picture looks east. Let's shift to something different, yes. And it may do this later tonight, maybe, snow scenes. The Northeast didn't get photographed that much because there wasn't that much up here back then. There just wasn't a lot of activity. There wasn't a lot of people. There wasn't a lot of public works. But when there was snow, there was, you know, the hell to pay, I think, if people couldn't get out around. So the city liked to show off its work. And this is what it did. This is a road that is, the road's still there, but not this particular part of it. There's a farmhouse over here. I mean, farm building over here. There is a farmhouse back here. This is pretty much, you know, typical of the far Northeast back then. There were electric wires, but there wasn't much of anything else. These are close-ups. Again, there's the farm barn, I should say, and there's the farmhouse back here. This is just the right side. Notice the chunks of ice and how much fun that must have been to get rid of that. And this picture, I took two of these because I thought it was relevant. This is what it looks like today. This is the original Decatur Road here, where the picture was taken right about here. And this up the Red Line Road. This used to extend out to the boulevard. And this is today's Decatur Road. This is what it looked like back then. And here is the farm building that was fairly new. And this was the farmhouse. And this was owned by a guy named William Dickhart. And I think that Mr. Dickhart lost his farm in the early 1940s as part of the original expansion of the North Philadelphia Airport. The next picture I'd show here, again, another snow scene. And this is of a very quiet road. There's a nice pretty farmhouse there. The woman was named Annie Lindley, who lived there in 1927. And between the Northeast airport construction and industrial space moving out of central Philadelphia, it was inevitable this scene would be different today. And this is where it was back then. It would look like a nice looking house. It didn't look that different from the Martindale house. There was an extension out the back. I guess as the families grew, they needed more ground, more bedrooms or whatever. And this is the intersection back then. This is where the Lindley farm is. The picture looks south this direction. And this is Grant Avenue, named for Samuel Grant. And this is Bluegrass Road. This part of Bluegrass Road is no longer in place. Bluegrass Road is up here. Sadly, the house was still standing in the late 1950s, and it was torn down for the airport. And I think it's near a Wawa right now. And this is what it looks like today. It's kind of boring. Okay. So some people know about Academy Road, and unfortunately, I don't have any other photos in this collection of Academy Road except for snowscapes, but they are pretty amazing. Academy Road was named for the Lower Dublin Academy, which is not far from this photo. This is around Constadters. And it ran all the way north to Byberry Road until 1960, when it was extended for the Parkwood and Englewood neighborhoods out to Knights Road. But in 1934, when these photos were taken, it was a long, narrow farm road, susceptible to wind-driven snowdrifts, as were exemplified by these photos. And again, this is looking north from Constadter's. This house was torn down a long time ago, and you can see the drift here, maybe. It's pretty high. Note the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, which would have been difficult to attain on a day like today in the snow. This particular photo is very near the property of Philip Dubill in 1927. And Philip Dubill lived just north of today's Grant Avenue, although at the time, Academy Road did not cut fully through beyond Academy Road. And that was his house there. Notice the easy thing of identifying a lot of these pictures. The utility poles ran on the right side, and today they still do. This is a little bit further up the road. This is near Archbishop Ryan, and there's 3 photographs I have in this particular series. And this is known as Chestnut Glen, which is the property of Francis Richardson, which you may remember recently we did a presentation on the book Hark Back with Love. And unfortunately, these 3 photos are the best things that's in any city archive that we can find. By diligently looking at aerial photography and had this particular picture blown up to 1,200 dots per inch, courtesy of the Athenaeum, I determined that this is definitely the property of Francis Richardson in 1934. But again, you can't see any of the houses or outbuildings or anything like that. And again, the way I did this, there was another Richardson property. This is an angled property that comes in, and this was a fence line of somebody named N. Richardson, who I don't know what his name was. But again, this is Academy Road, and this is the snow. And again, that picture there. This is up the road further. This is closer to Byberry Road. This is looking north from just south of Byberry Road near today's Morning Glory Road. And again, this is in the snow. And this red circle here is a trellis, which was there for quite a while. I'll show that in a second. Just look at the size of that snowdrift, though. I don't know how high that is, but it's high. I don't like snow, by the way. So, I mean, if it means anything to anybody, this is painful for me to look at. Just think about it. It makes me shiver. And this is the same trellis from 22 years later. And this is Academy Road. And this is the driveway behind what used to be a little Breyer's ice cream store, like a little variety store before they built the 7-Eleven there. And again, this is 1956. Now we're back to the 34. There's a man, I'm figuring he's at least 5 feet tall. There's a dog, he's higher than him. So that's quite a drift. I guess the dog passed away by now. And this is 2 ladies wearing fur coats, when fur coats were for warmth, not necessarily for fashion. This is the house that was a woman named Mary Brainy owned it around this time. And that might have been Mary for all I know, or that one. This later became bought by the Killian family. And this stayed in place until they built the neighborhood up around it shortly after 1956, when the sewer pictures like this one was taken. And it was all anticipation. In fact, if you look really carefully, you can see the same house there a long time later. This is a street on the other side of the boulevard. This is Worthington Road, just south of Southampton Road, going towards Byberry Road. Again, this is probably not a paved road. It was just a bunch of mud, and they just blasted through it. And again, the significant size of the snows. I believe there were 2 major snowstorms, one in February and one right around the first of the month in March. And I think this is what precipitated all this snowfalls and all these pictures taken because of it. And this is on Veree Road, and this is north of Welsh Road. And this particular house is built it started around 1930. It took till 1934 to get it done because I guess the Depression, I don't know why not. If you look a little closer, you'll see there's scaffolding in the front of the building where they're still doing stonework, I guess. And the roof's still made out of tar paper. And I posted this picture on Facebook. I do the Facebook postings for the History Network. So if you've ever seen any of my before and after pictures, I'm the culprit or the guilty party that does it. But what's pretty neat about this is somebody contacted me on Facebook, and they said that this house belonged to the wife, the parents of his wife that he married. So I mean, it was in the family for a long time. So I don't know if, I know the house is still in place now. And the address is 9789, I believe, if I remember correctly. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. One of the ways to keep men working in the Depression was the WPA, and there was also the Civilian Consecration Corps, and there was Civil Works Administration. There was a bunch of projects that Philadelphia was, I guess, lucky enough to have for the people that were working here. This was around 1933 and 1940, but I think it might actually go a little bit further than that. I can't prove that, but anyway, this is a picture of Mechanicsville Road, and this is going towards Knights Road after the road was improved. Again, you'll see water mounds there, and this was all done, but mostly by hand. I mean, they did have some motorized equipment later on, but mostly this is just a bunch of shovels and guys killing themselves, and especially when it's lovely weather like this picture to us. So here's an idea of what a WPA picture was all about. This is a road coming down the hill. The road went to the right. There was a small wash here, a small creek, and there were a couple of men that were working in this. When I first saw this picture from a distance, it looked weird, and I blew it up. And when you blow it up, you'll see this guy. And the thing is, when I saw it, I thought it could have been. I wasn't really sure. And I talked to this guy's son, who is my mother's first cousin. It turns out this was my Uncle George Crowder. And this picture, he was about 28 or 29 years old in this picture. And he was working WPA. His son, I immediately identified him. He's for sure it was him. His father never told him he did any work like this. His father had lost his house right before this picture was taken. And I'm pretty sure that he did anything to provide for his family. And there he is working in the mud and the snow and everything else. And this picture is Susquehanna Road. And this is Susquehanna. As you can see, the bend in the road there, like it was then. Today, it just comes straight down. And of course, today, it's just all housing. If you go up top of the hill, you'll get to the Boy in a Box. That's where the location was, the same Susquehanna Road in kind of like Upper Fox Chase, I guess you want to call it that. Often, work didn't involve grading, like I said, and these jobs didn't involve crushed stone, gravel, or asphalt. So this is kind of stuff where it just looked worse after it was done. Like these were guys doing the work here. This is a close-up of more work being done, and that's the road after it was done. And it's a mess again. And the city didn't have the resources. I guess during the Depression, they didn't feel like spending any money on a road out in the middle of nowhere. This is today called Norwalk Road, and this is west from Bustleton Avenue, but back then it was called Cruisetown Road, where it went north, and then it took a dogleg right up here where you can see these wires, and it ran the same direction. It ran right down past this building here and out to what is now Algon Avenue, and it ended at Rawn Street. The next section of this is called the main arterial streets of the Northeast. Now, anybody want to take a guess as to where this picture is? Yes, Cotman and where? No, not bad, but no. This is the Boulevard, believe it or not. Pictures taken in March of 1935. There was a driving range here, Earl's, I think it was called, and that's Cotman Avenue running west, and this is the Boulevard running north that way. So just remember what you said in a minute. Okay, this is an intersection that's, it was peculiar to me when I saw it. There was obviously trolley tracks running on the road. They look like a little bit wider gauge or whatever, but maybe not. And the road, one road runs down here and one road runs down there. And it looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere. There's some houses that are on these streets over here, but it's a pretty quiet area. A little more of a blow up, same picture again. And this is 1935's version. And there's no railroad tracks or no trolley tracks on this street, but there are obviously trolley tracks on the side of the road. And anybody might want to guess where this is? Yes, Castor and where? 2 for 2. Nope, it's Castor and Bustleton. The Farrell School would have been over here, and this would have been the SEPTA depot where the trackless trolley ended. And right behind there would have been like Norm's Bar, if anybody knows where that was. And then there's a Dunkin' Donuts right here now, I think. What's that? They did? Oh, bummer. That's a shame. Anyway, so this is a 1948 photo, and obviously you can see the enormous difference in the road. The trolley tracks are gone. The road is gigantic by comparison. The houses are still there. The Farrell School was built 8 years later in 1956, and the station is now an Atlantic station. Okay, so I'm going to shoot through these 4 pictures real fast. This is north. This is looking south. This is looking east. This is looking west. Any ideas where this could be? Yes, you are exactly correct. This is Castor Avenue looking north from Cottman. You can see the trolley track when it went over to the one side, and the other one was abandoned, I suppose. And this is a much later 1951 photo showing the trolley tracks still in place. And this is coming up where like Cutner Buick used to be. They used to have a lot over there. There's a Walgreens there now, I think. This is looking to the east. What used to be Lit Brothers is right here. And this is now Burlington Coat Factory, I guess. And this goes toward the boulevard that way. And again, you can see the double trolley tracks. And this is to the west. And this is the fire station that was built 3 years before in 1931. Right behind that is the former Woodrow Wilson Middle School or junior high school back then. And yeah, that was pretty good. And of course, this is what it looks like today. This is an aerial picture, and it's all built up and it looks all different. Okay, this is another main arterial street, and it's the same street. It's Castor Avenue again. But what was interesting to me about these couple photos here was that there was a ton of houses built up around here and on this side, but there was absolutely nothing along Castor Avenue at all. And I realized what it was afterwards. This was a WPA project when in 1935, WPA graded this area for concrete for sidewalks in anticipation of building the stores, I should say. This store is at Benner Street. This is still here. And I think what it was that they built the neighborhoods, they got the people in here, then they built the stores. And I guess that was the more economical way of attracting people in and then showing them stores as opposed to building stores at the same time. I'm really not sure how they did it or why they did it, but it's kind of a neat thing to see Castor Avenue so wide open, not that long ago, but long enough. This is here. Who wants to guess what this is? Yes, it is. It's 5 points. Yes, you're right. 5 points in 1934. Yes, there's the monument right there and right there. I took this picture because on the one side you'll see trolley tracks with Belgian blocks on them, and you'll see on the 1935 side you'll see asphalt paving. And this was basically saying that the cars were coming in the mainstream. And if you ever drove on Belgian blocks, and I have many, many times, it's no joy. If you're lucky enough to pick up the rails while you're driving, if your car's wide enough, you're in business. But if not, you're going to hit a very bumpy ride. So this was going on back then in 1934 and 1935. This is another neighborhood that had gone trackless trolleys by 1942. I should say trolleys by 1942, but with no Belgian blocks. I'm going to leave this up here for a second. This should be something, somebody should be able to guess this one. Bingo. Yes. This is looking southbound. This is Frankfurt and Cottman. This is Ryan Avenue right here. The Woolworths that was there would be back there. There's a bunch of stores here. There's a food fair back over here. There's an A&P over here on Leon Street. And on this, I'll show you another one on this side in a minute. What was amazing when I saw this store, I know an awful lot about Mayfair, and I was involved in a business with my family for years down there. And just look at the number of stores. I mean, every one of these stores were, and they were not like dollar stores or anything. These were like decent quality, high-end stores, and everything was occupied. And this is in the middle of the war. And, this was going on for, like the neighborhood was built between 27 and 29. And it was a really good thing. But the city was only interested in this. This is why they took the picture in the first place. It was a stupid trolley loading island. That's what they called it. And they had a couple bollards here, and they put a reflectorized sign there. And he got off the trolley here, and then you walked across the shorter street so you didn't get run over. So, and they did this over the whole intersection. And I'm fortunate that I got to see these because it showed a whole bunch of different Mayfair locations in this corner. So here it is today, obviously. This is Frankfurt Avenue, and this is my terrible Google photo picture. And here's something interesting. This is looking northbound on the same intersection. So this is where the Woolworths was over here. This is where the old Dial shoe was years ago. And here's the bollards and the safety reflectors in 1942. And look what happened in 1944. Somebody surprisingly ran into it. And there's a Sunoco station here. And look carefully there. You see it says Fruit Company. I don't know if you know what that's going to be, but it is the Penn Fruit Company. Now, if you've ever driven on Frankfurt Avenue, just east of Cottman Avenue, you might have noticed that there was a big open lot. And the open lot looked like a sore thumb. I could never figure out why nobody built anything. And eventually they built a drugstore there, but it still was pretty open. Well, this was a giant store. This was a Penn Fruit. I believe it was built right around 1940. I can't prove that, but I've been led to believe it was around 1940. This is the Mayfair movie on this side. This is brick as a rain gutter, basically a storm sewer, instead of using asphalt. I guess the brick would not wash out as quickly. And this is, from what I believe, this is Aldine Street. And this is the same picture today. As you can see, it looks different. It's all built up and yeah. And this is the other way looking west. There's the Mayfair movie. I recently posted this picture, and I never realized how many people went to that movies because boy, oh boy, a lot of good memories for a lot of people there. And this is Ryan Avenue going up this way. And again, the intention of the sign was the picture, I should say, was to show this right here, which was the safety island that was going to be built because it isn't very safe right now. Try to imagine getting across Cottman Avenue at that intersection now that way with nothing to stop you. And there it is today. John Morgan, good for you. Anyway, this is a little bit further south on Mayfair. This is, let me just catch up my notes real fast for a second here. Okay, this is a builder whose name was Charles Schilling. He built a number of homes in the area. These particular houses here were stone fronts, brick rows on the 3200 block of Longshore Avenue. And he was interested in advertising this. And I think he put this sign up. This is pretty cool. And by the way, I remember I was telling you about the Pauline Markloff home that was 6 rooms and it was $3,000 in 1935. Well, this is just a few years later, and a row house then was $4,000. So that was a significant amount of money, relatively speaking, back then. So this is the sign, and I'll tell you, if I had this, I would probably, you know, I imagine somebody just would be $100,000 you get a hold of it today on any kind of auction site or anything like that. As you can see, it's illuminated from the giant incandescent lamp underneath, on top, I should say. And these are translucent signs and showing the block, the 6700 block and the 2800 block of Under Avenue. And the photographer really gave us a gift because he opened the aperture so far and was able to get both things in place. And obviously there's a little bit of imperfections here from shadows and whatever, but you can still see, you know, the really, really neat road sign. Again, this is Frankfurt, I should say the Boulevard and Unruh. And this is what it looks like today. And this is where the sign would have been. And that's that now. That's what happens. Okay. And speaking of West Mayfair, here is an area that most people also know. This is the Boulevard Pools. This is the only photo in the city archives that I've ever seen of the Boulevard Pools. The Boulevard Pools was, I'm going to read from my fellow board member, Jack McCarthy, for this one, because he wrote an article about it years ago in Hidden City, Philadelphia. It was built in 1928. It was demolished in 1978. And it was dubbed the Seashore of the Northeast. And it ran basically up from Tyson Avenue, all on the east side of the boulevard, up to almost Cottman Avenue. There's a giant swimming pool there. Unfortunately, the picture doesn't really do it justice. But this is Tyson Avenue from Battersby Street. And it just looked like a little country lane. There's just nothing there back then. And nothing on this side except for an occasional farmhouse. This is a slightly different area. This is in the Northeast also. This is a major artery. And this is when they were doing track work. And if nobody had ever noticed before, but trolleys are basically trains that were in city streets. I'm not sure of the gauge. I mean, there's people that listen to these things that would know everything about it. I know nothing about trains except I know how to grab one. But this is a street that had an interesting little home here. It was very landscape unique way. Next page will show the curving road of Richard Ford, and there was a little creek just a little bit below it. This is the Tackawanna Run, and this is today where the Four Chefs used to be and where all this stuff is here now, the Mayfair Center. And this is just a little bit above Levick Street on Frankfurt Avenue. Okay, I'm going to let you guys guess where this is, if anybody will guess where it is. It doesn't look, it looks different, but it doesn't look that different. The road's essentially the same. Doesn't have, what? No, not bad guess. What? Yes, but where in Fox Chase? Close enough. Yeah, this is Hasbrook Avenue, and this is Oxford Avenue. There used to be a place called Stocksy Steaks here in this building. But back then it was a gas station, like many of these odd angles and points where they had the terracotta tiles and the gas pumps, look like very ancient back then. But of course, street sign that said Gulf. And again, this is Hasbrook. And this is what it looks like today. Today is the Hunan Wok restaurant, formerly Stocksy Steaks, where the sign was. And again, this is Oxford and this is Hasbrook. The next part of this is Public Works. And Public Works were an integral part of the Northeast development. And this is a photo of, does anybody have an idea where this is or what it is? This is a photo of the Bud Company. And these were the water towers that were on Red Line Road just west of Ree Road. At the time, that sign there was not that much of a, it really was a very sharp turn. And I believe in the 70s, they decreased the angle of the turn and they made it much safer. But by that time, the water towers were gone. This was all the Bud Company plant back here. Now, this is the 2900 block of Gilliam Street in 1949. It took 10 weeks for a city contractor to do this work. And I mean, there's a lot of work here. There's cement, there's sidewalks, there's curbs, there's removal of all the garbage, there's putting sewers in, and a city contractor did it in, I consider it to be a pretty fast time. And this is in July of 1949 on this side, and this is May of 1949. So either the weather was good or they were in a big hurry because they wrapped it up. And there was so much of the Northeast that was built after World War II. Unfortunately, there's not many photos of this area to show how the area was built up. But it was rather quick, to say the least. This is a mystery town, now gone. I titled this slide because I knew about this, but I didn't know about this. I've seen pictures of this particular bridge several times, but didn't realize why it was there because there's only one picture in phillyhistory.org that shows one side of the bridge after it was repaired. So there's a whole town down here. I mean, there's just all kind of stuff going on here. There's stores, there's restaurants, there's shops. There used to be a mill down the street here called Crescentville Woolen Mills. And I suppose these houses and everything were maybe some of the factory workers that lived by. I believe, I don't have any proof of this, but it looks like a car or a truck went through the bridge somehow and caused a great deal of damage. And within 11 weeks, they had it back up. There's the before picture, nothing there. There's the after picture. And there was a lot of underpinning work and everything else that had to be done. And again, you can still see the mystery town. Yeah, it was called Crescentville, yeah. The Woolen Mills. No, not Whitaker Mills. No. Crescentville Road, just south of Adams Avenue. Whitaker is on Tabor Road, below Adams Avenue also, but down further. This is what the area looked like in 1959. There was only one property left there, and Adams Avenue by that time had these curves, and this is what it looks like today. And Adams Avenue now, those houses connects to, I believe it's called Godfrey Avenue there, and it runs into some apartments and it goes in Olney. But again, big difference from back then, 1942, and bridge done in 11 weeks. And this is something that's been discussed here before, but I thought it was interesting enough to mention it again, how creeks are buried for land development. And you look at this side of the, this was an enormous mound of ground. This is pretty much up going north This is a street here called Everett Avenue, or Everett Street, I think it is, but it's called Everett according to city plans. And this is built on top of the Tackawanna Creek. And the Tackawanna Creek ran from the Naval Depot all the way down and around and went into Frankfurt and under Tarsdale Avenue eventually, and then went out to the Frankfurt Creek. And this is a 1927 photo of the construction of the sewer. And for this, there's a manhole that shows it. And this culvert took about 2 years to build, from 1925 to 1927. And basically, this is what it looks like today. It's all built up again. And again, this is under a creek. This is, I believe, an 11-foot wide sewer, although somebody might know more than me about that. But it's all developed area. And this is the site of many water main breaks and also the site of many accidents. Devereaux on the Boulevard is like maybe 100 feet behind this picture. And I think it's all because of the poor fill of the ground and everything else. The road's bumpy and it floods all the time and everything else. And next part of this is, I called it how landowners held up development, and for one reason or another. This is a street that looks pretty countrywide, except you got a bunch of 1920s row houses are here. Here's a guy in a car, and it's like the end of the world. And there's a Abbott's ice cream store there. And if you look ahead, there's just nothing. There's a house up here. And this was actually the farmhouse of the guy that owned the ground. And I got to read this exactly, otherwise I'm going to screw it up. It's, sorry. This is Robbins Avenue, photographed from Browse Avenue looking west. And the farmer was Andrew Peoples. And there were two other Peoples, last name Peoples, living in this. So a lot of Peoples people. And they owned this whole piece of ground. And it wasn't until 1949, 1950 where they sold everything. And then this rapidly became a row house development. And again, the boulevard would have been where these trees are up here. And there you see the People's Farms, and that's the arrow direction it went. And this is what it looks like today. It's all built up. Okay, I call this Oddities of the Day. And this picture is an oddity because you've got houses that were built in the mid to late 1920s, and this is 1936, and they come out of the street and it's a dirt road. And it's been a dirt road for a long time, and there's a lot of ruts, and it looked like it hadn't rained for a couple days. Otherwise, it would have been mud. And this is a picture I posted recently on Facebook. Does anybody have a guess where this might be? Not far off. Not bad. You're like a wizard, man. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, this is actually Edmund Street. And this is Tacony Park back here. And this is Loring, give you an idea. And this runs up the hill. This is an all industrial area now. And the city really didn't do a lot of work on the road until they built the other side up, which started right after this picture was taken. I thought this was strange. So here we have a picture. This is November 8th, 1930. The Depression was well over a year old. It was tough times for many people. You know, you saw the WPA stuff from 1934. And anyway, this woman seems to have been spared the economic ravages for now. And she appears mesmerized at the sign. She's just looking up at it. And I'm sure the city photographer told her to, you know, look lovingly at the sign. And this is the intersection of Oxford Avenue and St. Vincent Street. This is the northeast corner. This is a house that was built in 1924, and it was $6,000 to build. So it probably had many amenities. Anyway, so in street signs, this was the older version, like that one back in 1930. This is of Cotman and Rising Sun in Oxford. And this is 1935, and it had this giant cast iron stanchion that mounted the street. And this on this side was the newer sign. This is the 1941 type. And this is something that a lot of people probably, these still around in some neighborhoods. And they just like hung street signs off them or anything like that. But it's a much narrower cast iron bowl. And this is Dittman and Cotman in 1941. Now this is the city at its finest, and I've had run-ins with L&I before, and I know the joys of licenses inspection, but I never had this happen to me. This is a Hyman Corman house built in January. It was actually permitted in 1937. It was finished probably December, or November, or whatever. They planted some trees, and I guess it was okay, except it wasn't okay for the city. I don't know if you can read that. It says, this is an illegal encroachment on footway. And the footway is another word for sidewalk. If you see this property here, this is 1240 Devereaux Avenue. This is 1238. There's virtually no difference between this and this, but the city had some kind of an issue with it. So, as it turns out, I actually drove by it to look, and I couldn't get a good photo. But it looks to me that nothing had ever changed. So this sign went all for naught. And maybe this was a warning to Mr. Corman to, get his acting gear or something like that. I don't know, but it certainly looks like a weird thing to wake up at you go to your house and you see that. So this is something else. This is two roads coming up. This first road, there's bridge parapets on both sides, bridge walls, but there is no water on either side. And another one, same thing. There's a road, there's a little raise in the road, but there's no water. Does anybody have any idea why that could have happened? What? Oh, no. Oh, that's not a bad guess because I know what you're thinking about. Yeah, you're talking about Tacony Creek. Fracker Creek. Right. This is actually the Sandy Run, which was culverted about 7 years before that. It was culverted between 1926 and 1928. And then again, this is looking one direction, this is looking north, and this is looking south. And this picture is Oxford Avenue, just around Devereaux, or what became Devereaux Avenue. And this is right by the Oxford Village Housing Project is this way. And this is looking north. And again, it's kind of an odd thing. And this is something I thought was interesting, and any of you train guys would probably appreciate this. It's hard to see, but it's worth looking at, because what they did was they took the two tracks and they ran it into one track, and then they bent it around, and then they brought it out the other side and split it back into two tracks. And it came out to by where the Hunan restaurant was up here later on. But if you look at the road, they've got like poles here, and they got extensions here, and they've got this thing here. This is like an accident waiting to happen. So this is May of 1945. So the war was over by the time they fixed it in October, and they made it a much more palatable intersection where they don't have this loop over or anything like that. And again, this is all city work. It's a city highway, but anyway. And, this is something anybody that's ever seen any pictures of Philadelphia on PhiladelphiaHistory.org has had to have seen a shadow of a photographer. And I think this is my favorite, because there's two guys that were just as stupid as the one guy, where they had to realize that the sun was behind them and they were going to get a shadow on the picture, because this is filling the frame. This is on Frontenac Street, and this is new construction, 1946. This is between McGee Avenue and Unner Avenue. There's no traffic on the road. The road was probably just recently paved. And here's these two idiots, and there's their tripod, and there's their camera. So I thought that was an interesting, fitting end to this thing, because this happened all the time. And yet, if it wasn't for the particular photographers that were in took these pictures, we would have no idea of any of this stuff. Like I said in the beginning of the program, it was less about the public works projects. It was about the incidental things, the cars on the street, the signs, the names and manufacturers of things, people you see, styles of clothing, women that wore mink coats in the middle of the Depression, whatever it was. But I just thought it was really, really pretty good. My final thought on the official photographer was, these were people that they may not have had any training at all. They might have got out of the war, and they might have got a city job. I don't know if they were trained photographers or not, but I'm really glad that they did what they did. The office of the city photographer was decommissioned either 2006 or 2007. They were taking photos from, I don't know, officially 1880s, but there's Library Company of Philadelphia pictures from 1859, but they could have just been donated. But one thing's for sure, there are features in this collection that will make you learn and make you laugh. If anybody wants to, give me their email address, I'll send you the URL to look at these pictures yourself. It's kind of buried in the Athenaeum website, but there's about 3,070, I think, that I've corrected so far, and there's a little bit more than 2,000 to go. And I'm looking forward to doing the rest. The early ones were the first ones, and some of the early pictures just were astounding to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of them. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. Oh. Lou?
Yeah.
I have a question. I grew up, I'm in California now. I live in California.
That's why I can't see.
Can you hear me?
No, I thought you were in the room. I'm sorry. No, yeah, I can hear you.
Great. I lived from about 1950 till I went to college on Eastwood Street between Longshore and Tyson. And
Yes.
growing up, my perception always was Castor Avenue and Bustleton Avenue were parallel to each other. Yet here, they seem to meet. Was there some point where the direction of the roads changed?
No. Castor Avenue is dead straight from, runs northeast to, I should say southwest to northeast, from Oxford Circle all the way up to Bustleton Avenue at its terminus. Whereas Bustleton Avenue was an old farm road, an Indian trail, I don't know what it was, but it was an old road, and it went generally in the same direction. But as you approach the north, the distance between Bustleton and Castor was smaller.
Okay.
So when you get to like Hofnagel Street, which is like a block below Strail Street where the intersection is, it might be 300 feet wide, 300 feet long, I should say. And by the way, there is a picture on the archives, which there's so many pictures, I can't include everything. But there is one built when they built the 6900 block of Eastwood Street. And they show one south from Tyson and one north from Longshore, both before and after construction. So you might be interested in, if you contact the History Network or whatever, I'll send you the picture. I'll just copy and paste it into an email if you'd like to see it. You might enjoy that.
Well, first of all, if I may, I want to thank you for this. I've attended both of these programs, and it's taken me back to yesteryear, so to speak. As I said, we moved there in 1950, and I've been here in California since '78 now. But I worked for Food Fair. My dad was a charter member of Lip Brothers when they built the store, ran the alteration department there. I went to Woodrow Wilson Junior High, which you were kind enough to show again today. Anyway, this has been a treat beyond belief. So thank you so much for your effort.
I am so grateful to hear that. It makes all the work that I did in this was all fun, but I mean, it was still a lot of work, but it's great to know that somebody really got a kick out of it. Thank you so much.
Well,
and like I said, if you want to get a hold of if you go on the Facebook page, if you want to just direct message me and just give me your email, I'll send you a picture of the Eastwood houses. Or I can even give you a link to the, site so you can look through the entire thing yourself. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hello. Uh-oh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Sure. Yeah, what do you know, right? That's so funny. Well, that's great. Do you know why they're painted red and white? Well, now they're just painted like neutral, blue, green, or whatever. The reason why they were painted red and white was because that was the northeastern tip of the Budd Company airfield. And the thought was if a plane wasn't quite so sure where it was going to come down or go up, it would be in place so they'd be able to see it. Purina Towers, that's great. Wow. Checkerboard Square. Yeah.
Report be marked.
Nope, I can hear you fine. Uh-oh.
Test.
Technology.
It was important that airport be marked because there were so many airports in this area.
Yes, there was.
And I mean, astonishing number of airports. I kind of had the feeling that it was as common to have an airplane as it was to have, an RV in this day and age. Like people had them.
I mean, there was the Bustleton Airport, which is the one I showed in the earlier photo.
Yep.
There was the Flying Dutchman.
Yep.
And then, of course, there was all the ones up in Lower Bucks County, the Buell Field, and I don't even know, and a bunch.
There was a lot.
Too many.
Too many. It was
and
really.
then they became housing developments.
It's as you read about the airports up here, it's just almost incomprehensible.
It really
they would
is.
have
Yeah,
that.
I know. Land on dirt. Yeah, it's crazy.
Were there
Any other questions?
comments, questions?
Oh, there's a guy that may be listening tonight. I was talking to him on Facebook a little bit. He told me that the Parkwood elephant was right near that picture. And what it was it was just a bunch of weeds and vines. And if you looked at it a certain way at nighttime through a full moon, and maybe if you had had a beer or two, it looked like an elephant. And I put that in there just for him if he's listening. I don't know the guy's name, but I mean, you know, I hope he saw it. But that's where that is. It's in the upper end of Parkwood, very close to Medford Road. I'm sure it's all torn down now because everything got torn down up there. Any other questions?
Okay. I have one comment. I think that it's amazing what you have done. And it's not just those guys that left their shadows there that are responsible for this. The fact that we're seeing this is because of you.
Oh.
So I really do appreciate that. And you're the one that's putting this stuff up on the
Well, I want to tell you
network.
an amazing story about this. In 2019, my wife Joanne and I were driving up to Maine, and I got a phone call from a woman from the Department of Records, and she wanted me to be an assistant something for the Philly History website. And it was the September 2019, remember that date. So the pandemic hit, the funding went away, that was the end of it. And I was like, I've been looking at these pictures since 2007. I've been correcting them, and I from all over the parts of the city. I mean, Northeast, Southwest, everything. And I did some with sewer contracts. I did some just because of my knowledge of the area. I did some just by map research. And I thought to myself, I'm never going to get a chance to do this. I knew a woman years before said, oh, you can't work for the city, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then this thing fell in my lap in 2017. And I never thought it would come to fruition. And it wasn't until like maybe, I don't know, July of 2023, when Bruce Laverty, who is the curator, no longer, unfortunately, he's at Drexel now, but he got the thing going. And all the people that are mentioned, which I should probably, well, there's my thank you, by the way. And then these are the people I was acknowledging. They were all really amazing in getting it together. Walt Rice is the tech guy. He's a genius. I mean, he built I think he built the Philly History website, but he also does all the Athenaeum stuff. And really, really bright man. And Jim Carroll is the head of scanning. Mei Jing is a Drexel student, and she's usually interns. Well, this woman is a cut above. She really is excellent. And Drew Brown is the guy that got me started on all the historical stuff years ago with the water department contracts, because he used to go down there and he used to just humor me as I didn't know how to read a blueprint. And now I could probably make a blueprint. And yeah, any other questions?
I wasn't done thanking you.
Oh, you were
wait.
thanking me. Oh,
I think somebody has a.
Oh, please.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you see me? Hear me?
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have access to Facebook. What is your email? How do I contact you?
Okay. You contact us at NEPHILLY.
Well, LLY.
Yeah, NEPHILLY at gmail.com. So it's
All right.
again, NEPHILLY at gmail.com. And you ask any questions, and I'll either it'll come to me directly or indirectly, but I'll answer it personally.
Also, I want to tell you this was a brilliant presentation. I loved it. It was
Dear God.
fabulous.
I'm not going to be able to get out this building. My head's going to be too big. Thank you. You're so kind.
You're so kind too. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll continue thanking you, because the fact that you have done this and that you put this up on Facebook so everybody can see these things and puzzle over them and talk to each other and remember things is truly what having a history group is all about.
I appreciate that so much. And one thing I did want to say about this is a lot of people that have sat up here on this pulpit tend to talk about things from the 1600s, 1700s. I'm nowhere near that. I mean, but what's interesting about what I can see is a lot of people have lived and are still living and have seen these things. And, you know, some of the stuff might be a little bit too old. I mean, they might have been, you know, people close to 90 right now might have remembered some of the early pictures. But it's just the fact that somebody can acknowledge it. I think it's really, really neat. And it's very rewarding to know that so many people liked it. And that woman just like blew me away with that comment. And I can't thank her enough. And I can't thank you enough for your kindness, Maureen. Thank you.
easy to be kind. So thank you very much, Lou. We really did appreciate it. And I'm sure if anybody has any questions, we have tons of food. Those of you who are listening and watching, no dessert for you, but for the people here, we got a lot of good stuff. So we expect people to stay around and do some chatting, and I'm sure people are going to have questions for you. But I just want to let you know that for next year, you know, I hate people looking at me.
Oh, stop.
All right. I have no idea if I'm in the right place. Okay, so we will not have a meeting in January. We expect that it's too close to the New Year's and God knows what happens with the weather. We already have things scheduled really for most of the spring at this point, with the exception of our kind of going away thing where we go out someplace and have a meeting someplace else. So we have interesting speakers for February and for March. February is Black History Month, and we have a person going to talk about the history of the AME Church, which of course there's a very important part of Northeast Philadelphia. And then we have Janine has arranged for somebody for Women's Month, and it's a project that she's going to expound on in her own right. Okay, so that will also be something interesting for Women's History Month. So if you have anybody in school, for instance, and they may really need topics for Black History Month and for Women's History Month, I would say that February and March would be good times to bring some people. So I thank you very much for attending this. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Lou, again. And for those of you who are not here, we have this really great big TV screen now. It is so crystal clear, and we have to thank Fred for doing all the research and getting it delivered and figuring it all out. But for those who were here last month to this month, which one was better? There. It's just gorgeous. So big difference. Now, the good news is my husband doesn't come to these things because he would want a 98-inch TV. So there is nowhere in our house that we could be far enough away to actually get to the right focal point, but he would still want it. So thank you very much, Fred. This made a really significant improvement in the experience here. So this is great. Yep. And we are very grateful for the church allowing us in here once a month, and we have our board meetings here. So this is a really just a small token of our appreciation for this church that is really a very important part of the history of Northeast Philly. So with that, please have a happy holiday, and we will see you in, I can't believe this, 2025. So look forward to February.